Welcome to Alberta Impact. I'm your host, Bryce Lambert. Today we're sitting with Lindsay Sutton, Market Development Specialist at Government of Alberta, who's here to share how she and her team have been helping Alberta businesses enter and expand their food products into grocery retail domestically and nationally. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So take me a little bit through what it is you do exactly. I know you're trying to help local business, local industry get into both domestic and nationally. Tell me how you do that.
Well, I have the privilege of working with 200 to 300 clients a year, and really, in essence, we coach, we inspire, we educate them on the really difficult road it is to getting into retail or into food service.
Mm-hmm. And that's coming from the Government of Alberta, so it's a great initiative from the local higher up there is to try and make sure that we're getting out into the world. So can you kind of take us through how this process works? Where does it begin and where do you kind of come into the play, and then tell us about where you take it after that?
Sure. So Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry supports small business. We realize that is a big portion of what brings in revenue in our province, and it's a big driver for small, medium enterprise. So where I start is sort of after maybe an idea on a napkin. I really like ideas on napkins because then I can say, that's a crazy idea, or I can say, that's a really great idea. Usually they're crazy. No. So we have people called new venture specialists who are able to work with them and saying, you have an idea, let's see what you need to do in order to get to that next layer. So that next layer of business plan, or that next layer of figuring out who your marketplace is and who your buyer is. Predominantly, we work with packaged goods companies. Mm-hmm. So it might be someone who is working on a new confectionery product. So those are great samples.
Yeah.
We do work a lot with the produce industry and some of the meat guys as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting to see how much innovation is happening within our province and how many amazing ideas. So I don't get to have that much of those great ideas in the beginning, but I definitely hear so we have people called new venture specialists who work through those, getting on the ground running, knowing what to do for licensing and working within their municipalities. And maybe they start venturing into some farmers markets. We have people who help to nurture those farmers markets as well. So within agriculture and forestry, we understand that farm gate and farmers market is a really vital place to start. Gotcha. Hardly any barriers. There's not a lot of hurdles necessarily that you need to jump through. So that's a great place to test a new idea. Mm-hmm. And I would say probably 90% of products within Alberta have been tested at that farmers market level, because that's a easy place to get good consumer feedback right away.
Yeah.
As opposed to spending millions to get it into the consumer, into retail or into food service, only to find that you don't have a buyer. Mm-hmm. So great information there. So I definitely encourage my clients, if they haven't started to sell into a farmer's market, that they should. So to answer your question of where the magic that we do in our team is, when someone is looking at getting into retail or selling into more restaurants or selling into some of the institutions and schools, they think they're ready. But usually
it's a complex world.
Yeah, they're usually far from ready. They have a really great passion. They have a really great idea, but it's getting it to that next level. Mm-hmm. So we delve a little bit more into their price model. We look at, do you actually have a customer? Does the world really need your product? Some of those tough questions that we...
And then, of course, regulations too. We've talked before. It's safety. We've talked about, just the distribution model, revenue model. There's a lot of different pieces that have to come together to make the puzzle work. So when it comes to the local into, let's say domestic market first, where do we sit as a province on a percentage-wise to what's out there that's coming in? So what are we putting into the market from Alberta itself?
In general terms, Alberta has about 2 times the amount of products from outside of the province or outside of the country compared to what is produced within our province. Mm-hmm. It really depends on the product. So beef products, a lot of the beef products are coming right from Alberta. Eggs, dairy, same thing. Some of the produce items, of course, we have amazing greenhouses around the province who supply into the cucumbers, the peppers. So again, it depends. Consumer packaged goods, it's just a lot less. So it's very difficult to get into market. You're competing on a global scale now. You're competing against national players. So getting into market's just much more challenging. So I would say that ratio is probably close to maybe 10% of what we're seeing would be processed within the province and sold.
Gotcha. And the food processing industry of Alberta is very underestimated, I would say. Like it's not taken into consideration to the effect that it probably should be. We would arguably say we're probably the second biggest industry is in our agricultural and food processing, if I'm correct. And so what do we need to do more of to make sure that this is happening more regularly? What do we need to help people like you to get more of these entrepreneurs, more of these innovators into the limelight, into stores, and having their product pushed out there more consistently?
So many things.
Yeah. A complex question.
Right, but I think the things that come to mind to answer that question would be fostering a place where it is easy to bring new products into the marketplace. So maybe fostering a place where I can make my products is a great place to do it. So there's a few initiatives around the province to sort of help look at that incubation space for food. So we talk about incubation in the tech space, but what's happening in incubation on that food processing space. So that would be one opportunity. And then of course with that incubation could come the nurturing on food safety, regulations, pricing, all those good things that get into business. And then the part that I work on as well is not just to build that readiness with our processors and producers, is to help the retailers and the food service distributors and the restaurants to understand what is available in the province. So helping them kind of on the awareness piece to say that there are other opportunities to sourcing products. And it's not just with existing contracts with that company in the US. There's a lot of great products in Alberta.
So the advocacy for local is such a need right now. And I think that there's a lot of great local that people just don't know about.
Right.
Because they just haven't had that advocacy and they haven't had that push and local support. And I know you and I have had a conversation off camera in regards of just getting people out there, the public, to do the buy-in that local is the way to go. And I think that it's starting to slowly transition with the times, but that local's the way to go. Support those people, support your hometowns, and then maybe we can start getting more development into our processing and refinement and start getting more of those factories at the next level, those factories brought in.
Started them small,
yes,
and we can bring them into actually something that's scalable and they can build capacity. So that is for sure an interesting opportunity to kind of build these companies into something. There's lots of great momentum into the local movement. So I mentioned that study that we've done, I think since 2006, that looks at the demand for local products in the Alberta marketplace. So each year it's growing, which is great news. But definitely we saw something that it was able to surpass $1 billion in revenue for farm gate, farmers market, and restaurants, and some retail as well. So it wasn't even taking in part of that retail side of things. So that was really encouraging to see that people are choosing with their dollars to purchase something locally. And I find it interesting that the demand or the drivers to purchasing locally were safety. So there was a trust level for products that were produced locally. I therefore trust something that's grown by a farmer that in my area compared to a farmer that's in another part of the world. So we're seeing that people are maybe hopefully having a reawakening of what's important in our food system, and that the dollar isn't always the best determinant as to what you're going to choose.
That's fantastic to hear, actually. So I mean, the fact that we know that the food safety bar here in Canada it's crazy high for a good reason, and we all want that. But I know that does make it difficult for the smaller guys to get into that market and to navigate into that realm, cost-wise for policies and processes in place to have them implemented and whatnot. So, but I mean, to hear that the public is being more trusting towards the locals, and $1 billion, we're not talking small potatoes. No pun intended.
That's a lot of farmers market stops, right?
Exactly.
And actually, the majority of that was farmers market. So the amount that a farmers market is able to do to stimulate the local economy is quite remarkable. Yeah.
So it's going to be super exciting to see that number grow. And again, it's initiatives from the Alberta government and yourself that are going to help push those initiatives forward and drive that number hopefully higher.
And hopefully those folks that are working in farmers market have the courage and the dollars behind them to then move into retail, and we can make an impact. So there's amazing retailers across Western Canada who are working with processors and producers to reduce the barriers to getting into their stores themselves. So I think that then people can go from farmers market to their local grocery store and identify those local products is really key. So then there's been some fun things to denote that that's coming from Alberta and how far it's coming from, and then those folks can make the decision of what they want to choose. That's great.
Yeah, bang on. And I know it's a really tough start for some of these beginners and these entrepreneurs finding investment dollars to get new products off the ground and new ideas. And it's great to have a resource like yourself to be there that can kind of steer them in the right direction. And we hear about that lots in the entrepreneurial world, that you'll get those napkin ideas, and but there is that reality that has to be taken into place, because it's like, wow, this idea works if all the stars align and so on and so forth, right? But there are things that need to be focused on that you probably don't know about, and that's where you come in to help them navigate that.
So that's and I think the one-on-one really helps.
Big time.
We do a lot of workshops. It's not to say workshops aren't powerful, because they're learning from peer to peer, and there's great things that are happening for peer to peer, but I find it's that one-on-one conversation. So that 200 coffee stops that I do a year, to sit down for an hour and a half to talk about their business themselves and to say, there are some gaps in knowledge and this is what you can do, and help them to get on the right foot. So our goal is to never push as many companies as we can out the door. It's to really equip them with the skills so they're successful and still selling 10 years down the road. So those success stories that we see now in processing are starting right now. So we want to be able to nurture them so they don't fall off as they grow.
Focusing on quality, not necessarily quantity.
Right.
Good stuff. Right on. Lindsay, thank you so much for coming in and sharing what you guys are doing over the Alberta government in regards to pushing these kinds of initiatives for local farmers, local food processing. It's fantastic to hear that this is happening and that the support is there. We might not hear about it all the time. And hopefully we can spread the message that people like you out there exist, and you're doing good things, and you're out there fighting the good fight to make everybody, successful. So again, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today. Absolutely, for sure. So there you have it, folks. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Alberta-based content. See you all next week.
What that's called.